Welcome to Scrapbook.com's Craft Remix, the place where one set of supplies turns into endless possibilities.
Each episode, 3 incredibly talented crafters take on the same creative challenge.
They all receive the same key items to use in their projects.
And from those same supplies, they each create something completely unique.
3 crafters, 3 different visions, 3 amazing projects.
All in one episode just for you.
This is the Craft Remix.
Hello, my friends. My name is Meghann and I'm so excited to be here with you for Craft Remix. 3 designers are creating with the same 3 products, but I'm throwing in a few more Scrapbook.com exclusives and a few from my favorite brands to create a fun shaker card. And I'm sharing that with you in about a 10-minute tutorial. So let's get right down to the desk and you can see what I'm creating with. Today's Craft Remix products are the mini Christmas village dies, the nested wavy circle dies, and the winter flurry stencil, 3 amazing products that will create a beautiful shaker card. I also have a few paper pads because I'm going to do a lot of die cutting, the Warms, Holly Express, Peppermint, and the Festive Duo, which I love the variation of colors. I also grabbed the festive alphabet dies because I thought they would work really well for my sentiment. I have some beautiful glitter cardstock, some shaker bits from Buttons Galore and more, and of course some Scrapbook.com acetate. In the planning process, I always like to figure out if my shaker window is sized right for my card so that I can make sure I have room for a sentiment, and these nested wavy circles are going to be perfect in this size. I've also chosen my color scheme from some of those paper pads that I showed you before. I love this really joyful festive scheme. I have a brand new mint magic mat just for this occasion, and I'm going to create a frame using the nested wavy circles. I've chosen 2 that are right next to each other, and I'm going to place them evenly spread apart and run those through my Platinum 6 machine to create that perfect frame. I'm also using the Perfect Touch rectangles die here on this pattern paper for my card front, and I'm being sure to center that on the grid design so that it's going to look centered on my card front. I'm also using the Platinum 6 My Turn Comfort Grip handle, which is going to make all of this die cutting much easier. So now I'm putting my wavy circle that I want to cut out on the front of my card right in the center, and I'm using that grid to help me center it. Now I'm using all the dies from the Mini Christmas Village die set and the papers that I've chosen for all of the colors. I'm cutting off individual small pieces of paper so that I can use everything on my Scout machine, and I'm putting several through at once just to make this process so much faster. This may seem like a lot of die cutting work, but when you're putting them through all at once like this, it's so much faster. My machine kept wiggling around, which was slowing me down, so I'm grabbing my Scrapbook.com grip mate and putting it underneath of my Scout on my glass surface. So much better, and now I can keep die cutting. I'm grabbing my Spellbinders treasured cardstock to die cut all of the snowy pieces and also create a hillside that I want to be in the circular shape of the window that I'm creating. Now it's time to adhere everything together, and the Scrapbook.com Artiste glue with that fine tip is really helpful for these small die cuts. Now you can go in depth here by adding all of the mullions to the windows, all of the little details that are included in this die set, or not. It is totally up to you, but I went all the way here and I think it really paid off. The last step to create these houses was just to add those snowy details with that glitter cardstock. I just love how these turned out. Now I'm getting an idea of how I want to lay them out inside my scene by using that wavy circle die. But before I do that, I want to add a few snowflakes to my card front using the Winter Flurry stencil. So I've masked off several areas so that I just have 3 groupings of snowflakes, and I'm using Tide Pool ink from Concord and Ninth to match my background scene. Then I'm going to adhere my frame to that opening to really give that a finished look. To take the paper off of the grip mate, I'm pulling up my grip mate from my glass surface and the paper just comes straight off, so you don't have to worry about tearing. I did need a little bit of a sky on my scene, so I'm blending with Tide Pool ink again, and I'm laying out my houses inside of that opening just to get an idea of where I want to adhere them. I'm going to hold my glitter cardstock in place with some mint tape and then adhere it with some permanent adhesive. After finalizing the placement of my houses, I've decided that I don't want them to be too high, so I'm going to cut out the little areas where they overlap on each house. So I'm going to use the die from the smaller house, add that to each house on the side, and cut out those little indentations where the houses overlap. This is going to allow me to keep all of my houses on one level. So you can see here that they fit together like a puzzle piece. I'm only using adhesive tape here because I don't want them to be lifted up too far off of the background because that could stop the shaker bits from moving. Now that my background scene is created, it's time to make the shaker. So I'm using my crafty cleanup cloths here to spray some alcohol using my mister bottle onto my acetate. That's going to clean it off, get rid of any fingerprints. Then I'll use my Scrapbook.com scissors here to trim my acetate. And then some 1/4 inch adhesive tape to adhere it to the back of my card front. Once the acetate's in place, it's time for the 3mm foam adhesive because we want our shaker pieces to move around freely. I almost forgot to add my trees to my scene, so I went back and did that before moving on to the next step. I placed my card front into the corner of my rose quartz misty without the foam pad, and then I added my shaker pieces. Now my backing paper was already off of my foam tape at this point, so I'm just making sure that none of my shaker bits got onto that foam tape because it is sticky. I also took out the largest shaker pieces, leaving only the rhinestones and the snowflakes. Here I'm spreading them out so that none of them are stacked on top of each other. Then I'm going to cover my foam with liquid adhesive. This will allow me to have a little bit of wiggle room time. The pretty side of my card background is down with the opening at the bottom and the fold at the top. I'm placing my card panel in the corner of my Misty so that everything lines up perfectly, and then I'm going to put some pressure on that foam tape with that glue to really get it stuck down. Then I can just turn it over and shake away. How fun is that? I cut my festive alphabet die cuts from the same colors that I used for my houses, and I just think this font is perfect for this card. It's festive and fun and just beautiful. I love a really simple sentiment when I want the focus of my card to be elsewhere. And in this case, it's the Happy Christmas Village and that shaker window. To finish off my card, I'm going to use those same snowflakes from the shaker bits I used inside the window on top of the snowflakes that I stenciled on the front of my card. I want to keep the decoration on the front simple because I have that beautiful shaker window to catch your eye. Thanks so much for joining me for this episode of Craft Remix. I had so much fun creating this joyful shaker holiday card, and I hope this video has given you some inspiration and a few tips and techniques. Be sure to follow me here on YouTube at Meghann Andrew Creates and everywhere at Meghann Andrew. Happy creating, my friends!
Hey everyone, it's Marie here from Marie Nicole Designs, and I am excited to be on the craft remix today. We are using this fun bundle here. We've got the nested wavy circles, we have winter flurry, and we have the little village die set. You could use it for Christmas or just winter or anything you want. I have mine in a storage envelope already because I've already used this, and it's got all those little dies. I just find it easy to put onto a magnet sheet and stick into one of those organizing folders, so that's why it looks a little bit different in the packaging there. I'm also using some of these ombre paper pieces. I'm using the blue one, but as you can see, there's so many different colors. I'm also using a few blue colors of paper here that I got from the Cools cardstock paper pad, and I'm going to be using these all together today with those wavy circles to create a card that has sort of a 3D look to it, a layered look, maybe a shadow box look, if you will. I think this is really fun and really easy to do if you want to make a fun scene. So I'm picking out my wavy nested circles here, just the different sizes that I want, kind of eyeballing it on the paper to make sure I have the right sizes that kind of coordinate with each other, that fit inside of each other. And I am going to cut out one of these wavy circles on each of the pieces of paper. Now I'm making 3 layers, which means my back layer in the very background does not need to be cut out. So my ombre piece of paper is going to be my background, and these are going to layer over the top of it. So I need one with that bigger circle and one with the circle that fits right inside. I'm taking some of my mint tape and I'm taping them down. Again, I have these pieces of paper next to each other and I'm just kind of eyeballing the placement. I'm not worried if the waves are going to line up or not, but as you can see on the top there, I do have sort of the waves kind of parallel with the top of the paper, and it all is going to check out, but you don't have to worry about getting it perfect. It's supposed to be a wavy window into my whole scene, so I'm okay if the waves don't line up. So I've got those cut. I put them through my die cutting machine, so I'm just pulling those dies back out. I'm putting them right back on to the packaging. This is how I like to keep my dies and my stamps. I just put them back onto the packaging when I'm done doing what I need to do with them, so I don't lose them all over my desk. And even though I try not to, I still do. I don't know if you have that same problem or not, but I have not enough desk space and yet everything gets lost on it. I don't know. It's a conundrum. Anyway, I've got those 2 pieces of paper cut out, and I'm just going to line them up now and just kind of see if my scene is looking like what I want it to, and it is. So I'm going to move on with the next step here. I'm using my stencil, which you can see is in an album page. This is how I like to store my stencils. I put them in those page protectors and I put them into some of those 6x8 Scrapbook.com albums, and it's just been a really handy way to organize all my stencils. Now, I'm going to stencil with some Cloud Whip. You can see that my Cloud Whip has been sitting on the shelf for a while. It's a little bit crumbly, but I'm not worried because once you work with this Cloud Whip, it will get a little bit softer, it'll get more pliable, and you can spread it easily. So I'm just taking one of my spatula tools here. I'm working with it. You can see it's becoming more creamy, easier to spread. And I had this brilliant idea of putting some shimmer flakes into this Cloud Whip. I thought, ooh, once I spread it out, it's going to have that glitter sparkle. And it didn't really, because the Cloud Whip does kind of just hide that sparkle. So I didn't put a ton in. I thought I would try a little bit, see if it worked, and it didn't. So I stopped that. But I did add some sparkle, as you'll see later. I'll show you how it's super easy to do, even if you don't want to mix it into your Cloud Whip. So I'm taking my front layer, this is the one that's going to be on the very front of my card, and I'm doing my stenciling on that. I did not worry about that middle layer. All you see of the middle layer is that little edge outline, so I didn't want to waste any time or effort stenciling that middle layer, and my back layer has that beautiful ombre. So I didn't want to stencil that either, so I'm just stenciling the very top layer. Now I'm carefully peeling off that stencil, carefully peeling up my little front piece here, and now I'm just going to sprinkle on some of the shimmer flakes. It's going to stick right on top of that cloud whip, and it's going to glitter because it's not being all hidden by that cloud whip there. So if you want to add a little glitter on top of your cloud whip, it works better than if you try to mix it in like I did. Anyway, so I'm just gonna load all of my messy pieces here on my mat, took it over to the sink, wiped out everything I could, and then washed it so it didn't dry onto my supplies. And I'm going to assemble my little houses here. Now I think these are just adorable. They come with so many different little accessories. You can put windows and doors and chimneys, and there's even a little piece of garland if you wanted to make it Christmassy. So I did assemble them with some of those little pieces. I didn't use all the pieces, but I put a little bit of snow on them because it is a snowy winter scene, and I cut out a good amount of those little Christmas trees in white so that it would look like they are snowy. Those are all going to help build our little scene in our little shadow wavy circle window. There's those little Christmas trees. I think they're so cute. So I'm putting those back in my little dish for safekeeping so they don't get lost on my desk, and I'm going to layer my pieces that I've cut out. Now again, I like to just kind of eyeball things as I go along, put them together and imagine what they'll look like, and if I'm happy with that, I'll go ahead and glue them down. So to do this, to create dimension and a shadow box look, we're obviously going to use some foam adhesive. I love dimension, I love foam adhesive, and I love that there are so many different shapes and sizes of foam adhesive from Scrapbook.com, and I will say I love these foam adhesive strips. These are good for everything. So I chose these because you can see on the sides there, it really does get a little bit narrow. And so I needed something narrow to go behind there. So I took these strips, but I've also used these strips for sentiment strips if you like those. If you want to take the backing paper off of these foam adhesive strips and curve them around a circle window to make a shaker, you can absolutely do that. So they've just been a really handy supply in my craft room. I really like them. So I'm going around the whole outside with those strips. I'm going to line it up with my back piece with that ombre, and I'm going to adhere it down. Now I just eyeballed this. It was not precise. There was a little bit of offness to my lining up, but you can't really tell, so it's fine. Handmade cards are handmade, so you have to allow for some human error, but that's what makes them so charming. So I did this next layer exactly the same. I put some foam adhesive on the back, lined it up, and stuck it down, and you can see I just love the beautiful dimension that this creates. And you're probably asking why I'm assembling like this before even putting my little houses in there. It's because I felt confident enough that I could add some adhesive and some foam onto my little houses and just kind of tuck them into the background there. But if you don't want to do it that way, you can always make little pencil marks on where to line up your houses and put them down before you put on your layer piece, at least the first layer. I will layer some of the houses onto that second layer also, so I did want my layers down before putting in my scene, just so I can nestle them around each other and put them in that frame just the way I wanted them. This second house has some foam adhesive, so it is propped up a little bit. I'm doing 3 layers here. So I have that greenhouse glued down. I have foam adhesive on that red house. And the third house I'm doing a double layer of foam adhesive. Yes, you can put 2 pieces of foam together to double the height. And that way I can stick it onto that middle layer, and it's going to stick to the back, and it's going to be the perfect height. So I've got my 3 little houses in there. I think they look so cute, and I think that red really pops with the blue. I did go ahead and glue the trees around it. I did that off camera because you get the idea. You know how to build a scene. And now I'm going to put my sentiment on. Now you could stamp a sentiment, you could stamp and emboss on the background before you go ahead and glue everything down, or you could do it the easy way and just grab some of these rub-on transfers. And I took that Noel. I just love it. I'm using my little pokey tool here, the end of it, to rub that onto my background, and that basically finishes the card. Love that sentiment, love the shadow box that we created, and I love being here with you guys on the Craft Remix.
Hello everyone, Miss Carrie here. Today I'm excited to be creating alongside 2 other talented designers. We'll all be using the same 3 products: the mini Christmas Village die set, the winter flurry stencil, and the wavy circle dies. While they may look like holiday supplies, I decided to remix mine into a fall scrapbook layout. Since we're limited on time, I've pre-cut everything that I need for my scrapbook page. For the items behind my photo, I have cut a large tag and some banners from the Woodland Pattern Collection using the jumbo nested tag and flag banner dies. I used one of the largest flags to cut out a background piece from mixed media cardstock. I'll share that with you here in a moment. I've also prepped several die cuts using the Platinum 6 and organized them into stack and sort trays. These trays are fantastic for keeping little pieces ready to go. From the Woodland Pattern Collection and Harvest cardstock, I cut out a larger house in fall colors for a cozy seasonal feel. I'll be making this design here in fall colors. Using the nested wavy circles, I cut several sizes in an orange pattern paper. Can you guess what these are going to be? Some of you might have an idea of what I'm making, but I'm not going to show you until we put the layout together. From the Woodland pack, I cut these sizes of circles. Oh, whoops, let me grab that. Now, you can change the sizes of these circles based on the project you're creating. Once you see this layout put together, you'll be able to determine what size you need. Using the Sunny Lane floral dies, I cut out some flower shapes to make some cheerful sunflowers. The flowers and leaves were cut from the Gingham, Woodland, and Harvest cardstock collections. I'll share the assembly for these in a moment. All right, let's start with the background and bring in that winter flurry stencil. I have cut out one of the largest banners from some mixed media cardstock. I'm starting with a light watercolor wash using Tattered Rose. This matches the Woodland collection beautifully. I'm smushing a little bit of ink onto a silicone mat, adding some water, then I'll just dip the cardstock into the watered down color. If needed, you can use a paintbrush to fill in any spots and deepen a few areas for interest. I'm going to quickly dry this with my heat tool so that we can move on to the next step. Now for that winter flurry stencil. Even though it's designed for snowflakes, I'm going to transform these shapes into sunflowers. I've secured my stencil over the inked banner background with mint tape, and now I'm going to blend some fossilized amber ink over the top. When I'm working with stencils and detailed designs, I like to tap off my brush into the lid of the ink to avoid any blobs of color. All right, I've added in all the snowflake shapes. I want to layer a bit of darker color for variation. So I'm going to use the mustard seed ink to bring in a medium tone. I'll just brush this over the stencil randomly. Once you're happy with the look, wipe down the stencil and let everything dry. Next, I'm going to use a bullet tip pen to add little dots and doodles to the center of the stenciled shapes. Now, don't worry about making these perfect. Most of these are going to be covered with the photo, so you can just add dots to the ones around the edges. If you want to give these a more refined look, you can cut out extra dots with a circle die, or you could add some dimension with pops of color. You can also skip this step if you prefer a simpler look. Let's remove the stencil so that you can see these flowers come to life. Doesn't that completely change the look? This is proof that your supplies can stretch across the seasons. Since the rest of my pattern paper has warmer hues, I'm going to brush a quick layer of vintage photo ink around the edges. I'll just finish this up off camera real quick so that we can move on to assembling the rest of the items. Next up, the house from the mini Christmas village. I have placed the main piece onto a grip mate sticky mat to make assembly easier. With small pieces like this, it can be difficult to create dimension with foam tape. Instead of using foam tape, I stack multiple die cuts for dimension. I did move my camera a little bit closer so that it was easier for you to see this little house come together. These pieces are quite small, so a Craft Pick Pro or tweezers will come in really handy. It's also helpful to have some glue with a fine tip. I'm using Barely Art glue, but Artiste glue also has a fine tip that works really well for detailed designs like this. What I like best about these dies is how customizable they are. You can swap out the doors, the windows, and the roofs to create a whole little village. And by changing the color, it works for any season. For this layout, my house has a warm fall cottage feel. All right, the windows and doors are in place. Let's bring in the window panes. For tiny pieces, I add a little bit of glue into my stack and sort tray. This will wash off later. I'll just use my tweezers to dip these tiny pieces into the glue, and then I'll put them into place. As I add these last little pieces, I want to give you one more scrapbooking tip. If you want to create a cohesive look, use the same colors and patterns throughout your entire page. For example, I have yellow on my sunflowers and on my stenciling, and I'm using yellow for the window panes. The blue-green that I chose for the door matches the leaves, and the red and brown accents match my tags and pattern papers. This ties everything together beautifully. All right, our little house is done. The last item that I need to make real quick is the title. I'm using the Modern White Alpha Rub-On Transfers on a wood grain pattern tag. I have placed the tag onto that grip mate mat, and I'm using the plastic tip of my Craft Pick Pro to transfer these letters in place. You can also use a popsicle stick that comes with the transfers or a bone folder. I'm going to finish this title up off camera so that I can show you how the page comes together. For my background, I have a piece of white cardstock cut at 11 by 11. I have backed my photo in a green-blue paper from the Woodland collection, laid it onto the stenciled banner, and now I'm adhering the two flags in place. I have some great vertical elements here that are leading to the photo. To balance it out, I'm going to bring in a tag and title that will sit horizontally over here on the left. Off camera, I backed my page with some Simple Stories pattern paper. I always try to match the frame color to the photo or surrounding elements so that you draw your eye in to the center of the page. Now it's time to bring in those wavy circles. Did you guess what they're going to be turned into? That's right, they're becoming pumpkins. I bet a few of you already knew what I was going to make the minute you saw those orange wavy circles. I'm going to layer these up with some foam tape, and then I'm going to hand cut a stem to place at the top. It doesn't need to be perfect, just a little rounded rectangle to mimic a pumpkin stem. I'm going to add a leaf, and now we've got a fun little pumpkin. As I finish adding the elements to my page, let's chat about other ways that you could use these wavy circle dies. I have seen creators use them for shaker cards or shaker elements on a scrapbook page. You could also use them to cut out photos and frame them. Circles also make great repetitive backgrounds or borders on cards and scrapbook pages. With the holidays coming up, I picture these being turned into ornaments or cookies for a holiday page. I would love to know how you are going to use the wavy circles. Share your ideas in the comments below. All right, I promised you that I would show you how to build one of the sunflowers. Each of the flowers was cut out of a solid and a gingham. Having a solid layer creates a little bit of dimension and separates the two gingham patterns. I'm just going to add some thin foam tape in between each one of my layers. I have 2 large flowers, 2 small flowers, and in the center I have this little circle with the dots cut out. I did back this in white to help it stand out a little bit more. I'm going to tuck this right under the house right here. I did use foam tape to give these elements dimension. For those of you who like distressing, you can add extra ink for a vintage feel and finish off with some pen details on the leaves and stems. And here it is, my fall scrapbook layout using the mini Christmas village, winter flurry stencil, and nested wavy circles. I hope this inspires you to see your holiday supplies in new ways and remix them for any season. Thanks so much for watching Craft Remix with Scrapbook.com. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Craft Remix by Scrapbook.com. You can get the bundle today's crafters used. If you create with this kit, upload photos of your projects to the gallery and tag the bundle so that we can see your take on these projects. Remember, the best place to watch videos from Scrapbook.com is at Scrapbook.com/livestream. Thank you to today's instructors, and we will see you in the next episode.